Hello and welcome to the final episode of Timeless Topics Season 1. In this episode, we reflect on our journey creating this content and our individual growth. We discuss everything from role modeling and mentorship to SWOT analysis to NRP, and it wasn't Jessi that brought it up this time. We're so grateful for your support this season. Let's go ahead and jump into the discussion. Stay tuned until the end for an exciting opportunity.
Really cool neonatologist who, it was in the days when they would come on service for a month, and then they would go back to their community hospital. And this one guy, he would always say about less is best. And just because we can doesn't mean we should. And just, he'd been around for a while, you know what I mean? But was just such a good mindset. And some of the other adrenaline, jacked up folks, really just didn't appreciate, the wisdom that he had, and he was wonderful, like super astute, super attuned. Like if you had a baby in the NICU, you wanted him taking care of your baby. But other folks just kind of dismissed him because he was full-time at a level 2 and people just thought, oh yeah, he doesn't really get it. It's like, oh no, he gets it. He gets it real.
Well, it does
Yeah.
make you stop and think that as our technology has changed, as we've gotten more and more evidence, it makes people feel like they have to do more, right?
Yeah.
Because now we can do this and oh, we can do that too. But do we really have to?
Mhm.
And so I think we have gotten away from this sense of look at the patient, look at the baby, and what does this child need?
Yeah.
Now, that is a double-edged sword because on the other hand, I think when we talk about equity, then you do want to have more of a standardized approach. So that way
Yeah.
employee bias can't factor in and say, I'm not going to do it for this particular baby. So I don't quite know how to balance that because I do think that standardization, if it is practiced or implemented appropriately, can be impactful in ensuring that all of our babies have the same outcomes as much as we can protect it, right? We were talking about this in regards to NRP and some of their things, and I was like, I do appreciate the fact that with the algorithm, there is no stop and look at the
Yeah.
race or ethnicity, or stop and look at the insurance, or stop and ask the family, hey, are you married? But rather, is the baby breathing?
Yeah.
Or is the heart rate? Is it term? Like it's very clear that these are the things that we care about, and this is the algorithm. If it's not this, you do this, right? And none of that other stuff factors into it.
Yeah.
And but I don't know quite how to balance that, and then people becoming task oriented and only being able to follow the algorithm. And if there's any outlier, people don't know what to do.
I think these past, series of episodes, there has been just so much wisdom that has been just released into the ether of this space. We kind of like start talking about some specific event, oftentimes something that like just happened 2 days ago, and it kind of snowballs and rolls around and brings us around all of the, you know, nooks and crannies of the topic and how everything is so wicked interconnected with everything else. And I think the point that you were just making about, caution around having algorithms, having protocols for care that help us from deviating into bias territory and providing in non-equitable care. I think we're trying to go to that place from a a point of reference that's already messed up. Do you know what I mean? Like it already feels like it's corrupted. So I generally don't like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I wonder, if we really want to craft and design a new way of approaching the care that we provide based on all of the amazing resources, tech, innovations, all the cool stuff that we have, maybe we need to step away from it and kind of come back to home base, kind of come back to the clarity of this individual human within the context of a family in the throes of a life-threatening situation. How do we identify, interpret, respond to the humanity of the situation, because we got the skills for the disease, but we've traditionally only focused on the disease and thrown away the humanity. And so I wonder, if, I mean, to be honest with you, I know this group here, we can definitely craft that algorithm, hands down. Um, just because I think the freedom that we've created in this space, and the safety that we've already established, just kind of with the interactions that we have, and sharing insights and wisdom that I don't know, guys. I mean, are you talking like this in the lunchroom at work? I don't know.
You see, I think, well, okay, so two things. Just on that point of, are you talking like this in the lunchroom? I would say no, because
Mm,
people are fearful to
yeah.
have such open, transparent conversations for
Mhm.
concern that even though I may be talking to you, Mary, maybe Jessie's sitting over there on the corner and she's not agreeing with us. She's not participating in our conversation, but
Mhm.
she's disagreeing with the conversation that you and I are having. And then she's now going to take it up the chain
Mhm.
to HR, whatever,
Yeah.
and say, this is what they were talking about. So people are concerned,
Yeah.
people have fear, right?
Mhm.
Which again, you have to be trusting of the people around you to be able to have this conversation. And the other thing, again, it goes back to my thought about NRP and conversations of having like a CPR coach that just kind of stands back and watches everything. It's some of our problem because we are all so deeply immersed in it that we just need someone that stands back.
Yeah.
Almost you almost want every NICU, every team to have like a consultant to just come in and say, look, this is what I've seen. This is my recommendation. Again, based on the evidence. It's always go based on the evidence, but somebody else to just step out and say, you guys are doing a really good job here, but this is where something else could be improved. And
Mhm.
I don't know. Again, that's kind of Pollyanna thinking that we could have something like that, but maybe that's a place to even start, is
Yeah.
that we just need somebody to call it for what it is.
Yeah.
Look, don't give me a seventh job, okay? Because I would love that job.
Right? I
And I know a couple of colleagues who
Yeah.
would be just as good at it, right? Like basically SWOT analysis for your team,
Yeah.
right? To be able to come in and say, like, here's things are going great. Here's where your opportunities are. Here's some threats based on, culture, resources, whatever it is, right? To kind of say the quiet part out loud. I think we've gotten away from that a little bit to your point of like people being afraid. Well, where's it going to go? Well, maybe it's going to go somewhere it doesn't need to go, but maybe it needs to be said.
Yeah.
I told somebody today, I was at one of my organizations and I was just like, oh, I'll tell them no for you. Because she was like, I don't like saying no. I was like, I am a professional no sayer. I was like, so you just let me know and I will help you out, you know? And she was like, I might literally like ask you. And I was like, it is a complete sentence. But it does take a little bit of gumption, right, to do that because a lot of people are afraid. And this is also where I tend to leverage my privilege, right? Because I can say things with a little bit less of a risk than other, communities can. So I try to be that voice when I can be because I kind of can. I mean, what's the point if not, right? Than to leverage privilege that I didn't ask for that I have.
Yeah. There's just so much messiness about what the issue is, that even if, I mean, it feels like it needs almost like a two-pronged approach. The folks that are in the thick of it, like, you guys, you're at the bedside, you're already, swimming in the crazy and all of the other kind of stuff. And then you've got these newbies, that are coming in that may benefit from some added education around some of these human factors, some of this, the trauma-informed aspects, really digging into the racism and the ethnic disparities and all that kind of stuff, like for real, like not just reading about it or getting a lecture, but like exemplars of what it looks like, in your day-to-day life and in your day-to-day work, so that you come a little bit prepared. But then, when they plop in. I mean, with the rare exception of having, an open-hearted, wonderful, loving educator, Jess, I don't know that there's a guarantee, that you'll always have that kind of mentor as you're navigating into this new environment. And so kind of figuring out how do you disrupt the current psychological the lack of psychological safety in most environments, right? I mean, not just healthcare, but we can focus on this, right? In healthcare, because it's so siloed, because it's so ego driven, and then you've got these fresh little faces coming in. And what do fresh little faces want to do? I mean, they do want to show off and they do want to do the good work, but they also want to fit in. They also don't want to disrupt the stream. And so you've got this place of like, you want them to feel like they belong, but you don't even feel like you belong, and you've been there for 25 years, And so it feels like, I mean, this could definitely be, a series for our conversations, for the years to come. Notice I said years with an S after it. But I feel like, that's a big piece of it, I think a lot of times we put these little band-aids on these human situations that are actually like sunken chest wounds, like good luck, it's not going to hold. Um, so it does take courage, like you're saying, Jess, and being really authentic and just, like this is what it is kind of a thing, Trace. I mean, the good work that you do with the nurse practitioners and the other providers. I mean, at the end of the day, you are going to try and survive it. So, that will take over, but how do we, collectively, like on this conversation, cultivate courage that translates into those different spaces, right? Or, I don't know, help people find the courage to do this work in spite of the barriers that are pre-existing. Like, because if we can't help folks start to, debride that, you're always going to just, keep abscessing up, just to go with that wound analogy there. I don't
Well,
know.
hopefully just maybe some of the role modeling and mentoring will help, right?
Mm,
And yes, even though when we first started out this kind of series, we talked about the differences, but I also think that as we have really kind of learned each other over time, we're much more similar than I think we ever all thought, right?
yeah.
And so it is easy to have this dialogue in this setting, right?
Mhm.
But this is where you start. So
Yeah.
you're comfortable in saying with people that you trust and people that you say, I'm not going to be my best right now, but I'm just going to, right? And
Mhm.
then you two may say, okay, so maybe here's another way that you could say it, right? When you're in a different forum
Mhm.
and you give me that kind of feedback, that courage, right? To
Yeah.
say, okay, now I'm going to take this information. I've now got it in a more polished um, manner in which I can present it in a form where maybe the people aren't going to be as welcoming and receptive, right? Because we all know that a lot of what we say and how we do things is how people perceive it.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who who will absolutely strangle me when she hears this, but the thought that perception is reality,
Mm,
right? And because for some people it is,
yeah.
and what they perceive. So if they perceive that I am coming at them in an angry, defensive manner, and so sometimes it takes having this safe place to say, I need to just say it to you,
Mhm.
help me, one, get it off my chest so that the anger goes away. And
Yeah.
two, help me think of terminology that I can use so that my point is not lost in my underlying anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's building those like safe relationships to debrief, like we mentioned an episode or two ago, right? To be able to say, like, hey, I know that this cannot come out in this way, but I need it to come out to somebody. So you're my safe adult that is going to listen to me and navigate me through the situation so that I can continue to feed my children, right? And sometimes it's really helpful. Like, I'll get calls sometimes. They're like, I need you to come write this email for me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because like I can't be the one to write it, but so let's write it together, you know? And you're like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Do you need me to send? No, I need to send it. I just can't write it. All right, got you. Like let's sit down together and we're gonna write this email together so that we can feel like, oh, maybe not that word, right? Or consider this way. And sometimes I'm the one calling because I'll be really hot about something and I'll be like, I know I can't press send, but I need you to come up here like right now because I do need to send it soon. You know? But it's finding that person to navigate this environment with and to mentor each other because that's really what's happening is you're supporting, but you're also kind of sharpening that skill set in each other. And then you'll feel, hopefully safe enough to start opening up that circle, right? And being like, oh, and now we're going to talk to so and so because she's also got, this challenge. And it's a little bit of kind of radical demonstration of the courage. But sometimes when people hear that, they think I've got to fall on the sword. I've got to have some public display of that. And sometimes change is better done a little bit more insidiously, right? Like where you're kind of like working on the back end, you're building relationships, you're figuring out what to do, and then before you know it, things start to turn. It doesn't happen quickly, right? It always happens slowly, but I would argue good change should be somewhat slow so that you can make sure you've got a sustainable plan, like a sustainability plan, and you're not just blowing a china shop, this initiative, because rarely is that actually the kind of change that is needed.
Is discourse, like when you were speaking earlier, Trace, and I help me have this conversation with you and stuff, but you do need that sense of safety to at least even open the door on that. But I think just kind of generally and particularly in today's climate, we have completely lost the art of respectful discourse. And the other thing that's connected to this thought that's percolating in my head is you said, I mean, after how many, months of us doing this work together, we realized that we are more alike than I think we initially anticipated. I think we felt like, there was, definitely some synergy between us. But I think what we've been able to do is see deeper into each other's hearts. And when you said that, you made me think like, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think the three of us might be a microcosm of the larger population. That maybe if we could figure out how to find the common denominator, like gee willikers, we're all here in neonatology. I'm going to guess most of you guys like babies and you like adrenaline, And so, okay, so there's some common denominators that maybe we can use some of that to try and begin to navigate and build bridge some connections. I mean, certainly is not easy because there's besides the common denominators there's lots of ancestral stuff, the things that I don't even see like on my radar, kind of, all the blind spots that we have and stuff. But if we can begin to have interactions that almost like when you were saying about having, I imagined you going into a room and having this conversation with somebody, and it almost felt like a treatment room, like if we could have like this designated space, I don't know if it's the chapel or, like, oh, get it holy, or, where it could be that it's like, we're going to go into this physical space that has now been designated, the place where we have a conversation and we have some guardrails. I know this is like wicked out there, but we have like a framework of like how you when you cross that threshold, these are the expectations, the behavioral expectations, like, no name calling, no swears, nobody can leave, angry or something like that, and just begin to like test out some of these different ways of bridging the connections that build trust and build safety. Probably, I was going to say one person at a time, which is definitely I think the way to start, but it might even be just one interaction at a time with one person kind of unfolding. I don't know, you made me think of all of those things in your commentary.
But I think that just goes to what we have been discussing as next steps, right? Which is opening the circle and letting others in to get different perspectives, opinions,
Mhm.
thoughts,
Yeah.
right? And I think also continuing to role model the fact that when you sit and have a collegial, respectful, trusting conversation, at the end of it, in all likelihood, you're going to leave saying, we do have at least that one tiny 1% of our world in common. And
Mm.
even if it's only 1%, right? I mean, even if the end of the day, if what we leave with is we're both human and we both bleed red, right? Whatever. But
Yeah.
we do. And if I stab you, you're gonna bleed. If you stab me, I'm gonna bleed. We're gonna bleed, right? So if that's it, then that's it. But there is something, right? There's no, at least I don't think, any human being on this earth that I could say there's not something that we don't have in common.
Great.
And so maybe that's next step. Again, one person at a time, one interaction at a time. And that interaction turns into amongst the four people, if we say it's one person, four people, these four people disseminated out to four people, they disseminated out to
Yeah.
four people, and before you know it, oh, we've touched them all.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's like I'm because I immediately was like role modeling. That's how we do this, right? Like, and I know that's partially the educator in me, but I also think it's what's missing in a lot is we hear a lot. I hear a lot frequently as an educator, like, oh, well, these younger nurses, they don't even know how to have a conversation. They just want to text you. And I was like, I mean, I wish more people would text me sometimes, honestly, because I was like, you know what, this could have been an email. Like, why are we doing this? But okay, I'm here. I'm showing up as a human for you because this is the way you'd like to communicate, and I'm attempting to meet your needs, right? But role modeling how to do that, because sometimes they've just never seen what it looks like, or they might have ideas of what it looks like, or they might have non-realistic ideas of what it looks like based on TikTok or social media or whatever. And I follow all the same, nurse humor people, and I think they're hilarious. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I hope my group doesn't see this one and try to pull this on me, you know because it takes a little bit of, time to be able to know this is truly just humor versus this is how we should, behave in the professional setting. But if we show them not only how to do it, how to cultivate it, and that like nobody died in the end, like we disagreed and everybody was still employed and okay, then it kind of shows them, well, maybe I could do it too. So we're talking about like opening up the circle kind of, I don't know, initially I felt like Mary was like, we're not going to have a script. Like, we're not going to have talking points. We're just going to jump in here. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it and see what happens. And if it's terrible, we won't release it. And if it works, then it keeps working. Right. And I think we've grown, all three of us have grown into this idea of like, I don't know, what do you want to talk about? And then we just end up wherever we end up. So when you're thinking about inviting people into this, it's kind of giving them permission to come on that journey with us, right? Of like, sure, we can have some talking points, we can have a broad theme, but also it's okay to just be a little uncomfortable and see what happens,
Mhm.
right? Again, that role modeling that this too shall pass, and perhaps you will learn something in the end.
I love that you brought that up, to be honest with you, because I think it speaks to kind of like a safety net that's been artificially crafted, like having the script, knowing what's going to happen, the algorithm. And I know there's, good reasons for having algorithms. I'm not going to throw that one out the window, but, at the end of the day, what this experience helped me grow into is that I don't always need a script. That you guys have created this ambiance, if you will, that feels fun, feels inviting, wicked curious, and non-judgmental. And so, kind of having these conversations and literally not knowing what's going to come next has helped me at least grow. I mean, I feel more courageous. Because I'm not a spontaneous person. You can ask my husband, you want to go out, give me a week at least, heads up that something's going to happen. But also has helped me appreciate that there is some wisdom in there, that there is some stuff that I didn't have to study for to come into a space with you two guys, And so yeah, I think and to role model that in this kind of a safe space to whoever is watching it is wicked cool. And it has actually piqued my curiosity and courage, if I be so bold as to say that, to want to invite other folks into the space and see what happens, because it feels so safe and it feels exciting and maybe a teeny tiny bit spontaneous. So I'm kind of like, stretching out of my comfort zone. And if I can do that, being on the planet for a long, long time, then maybe that can help other folks that are maybe new to the area, new to the specialty, new to the profession, or new to this kind of space, step in and be a little bit courageous, be a little bit of a daredevil, if you will.
I would echo that and say that it was just sitting here thinking the same thing, that it has definitely helped me be more courageous in sharing my thoughts, right? And knowing that sometimes my thoughts aren't as crazy. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not as crazy as they may seem when I'm just saying them in my head, and that it's okay to share them with others. And sometimes those others will be like, yeah. Other times it may be like, no, but that's okay too, right? Like it's okay, because how else do you continue to grow in life and to learn unless you are able to just let down your guard just a hair? Right. And gonna take it back a little bit, Jessi, to what you were talking about with communication and some of the generational challenges with communication. I think part of this too is recognizing that just like we know everyone learns in a different style, we communicate differently. And we need to be sensitive to people's communication styles and preferences. And if you need me to text you, cool, I'll text you, right? I may ask you to call me. And so let's meet each other halfway. If you only want to talk to me via text, I will initiate the conversation that way. But please give me a call, because I would rather hear your voice, right? Versus please don't show up at my house because I don't want to see you in person. But I mean, so I think if we could recognize that and think part of that, tying it all back together, is that comfort with being able to say, Jessi, I don't answer my text. I'm just gonna be real with you. If you want to talk to me, I'm gonna need you to email me so we can set up a phone conversation or a Zoom. But I'm not gonna answer you via text. I just know that I'm not good at that. But having the courage to be able to say that to you and say this communication is not working. And so for our relationship, professional relationship, personal relationship, whatever relationship, to continue to grow, we're going to need to figure out how we can meet halfway on both of our ends. But that takes somebody actually having the gumption to say, this isn't working for me.
Yeah, when I was, full-time clinical educator, like based on a unit, running around like my hair's on fire all the time, meetings, classes, all these things, right? And I would walk around with a notebook and I would tell people, if you don't see me write it down, you have to literally tell me you cannot move until you write this down, because I will not remember it. I have a very good memory, but I've got 7,000 things going on in my head right now. And when next time I see you, I'm going to be like, I was supposed to assign NRP modules to you, and oh my God, that was like 2 months ago, and like I will remember it then, but it'll have been too late, right? So instead of just thinking, oh, Jessi's forgetful, or Jessi doesn't care, or she doesn't listen to me, you have to understand that I cannot do all of that. So either send me an email that I can flag and look at when I'm sitting at my desk, or I write it down so I can make a checklist, because you will become dash send so-and-so NRP modules. And then I'll check it off when I'm done. But if I don't write it down, it's not because I don't like you or I don't think you know how to resuscitate babies. It's just, I can't remember it. But that was me having to be vulnerable in sharing that I am not a superhero and I'm not going to remember all this. because I'm going to have a human mind in the end, on top of being a mom and having my own, health stuff and everything going on, right? Like the global part of my brain cannot be split, but so many ways. But I had to role model it. And so by the end, people would be like, I didn't see you write it down. Did you write it down? I was like, I did. It's right here. Number 15. You're right here. And they'd be like, okay, I just want to make sure. And I was like, good. Thank you. I appreciate the cross check, right? Because I'm going to forget. But it was teaching them, how to do that. But then some of them would come to me and be like, don't send me an email. Can you just send me a text, or can you just find me on the unit? Like, I can't keep up with all the emails. Okay, I can do my best to accommodate that, right? Because if that's what works for you, then I can attempt to be in a relationship with you, whether it's professional or whatever. And that relationship means that I need to be able to support your strengths and weaknesses, just like I'm asking you to as well. So all that to say, if any of you out there want to be a guest on Timeless Topics,
There you go.
let us know.
What a comment down below.
Yeah, we're going to take a little bit of a breather before the holiday season, and come back sometime in January with some new episodes. But we'd love to open up the circle a little bit and kind of see how that goes. And again, it'll go well, it'll go differently. Either way, we're going to learn something, and then we'll decide what to do from there. Thank you for joining us for Season 1 of Timeless Topics. We always welcome your feedback and suggestions, so please reach out. Our handle on all the social media platforms is @TimelessTopicsNICU, and our email address is timelesstopicsnicu@gmail.com. See you next season. The thoughts and opinions shared here are those of the individual speakers and do not reflect the official policy or position of any of the speakers' employers or any other affiliated individual or entity.